Hey, and welcome to another episode of Bliss Boss Talks. I am your host, Jaya Rose, a life coach, speaker, doTERRA team leader, and mama of two free-spirited girls. And this podcast is for spiritual and ambitious women and their men who have a passion for helping people and making a positive impact on this world. Join me weekly for interviews and Bliss Boss Talks on releasing the urge to play small and fully stepping into your prosperous potential. Ready? Let's go. Hey, welcome to Bliss Boss Talks. I am super excited to share with you an interview with the Danielle Mercurio today. She is a confidence coach, a cosmic badass, and an amazing humorous speaker, meaning she does comedy too, which we talk about on this episode. We dive into all things living in your purpose and your passions, being multi-passionate, zooming in and out from your actual personal growth and your spiritual, cosmic, meant to be purpose. It's super epic. So let's dive right in. And I'd always love to know what you think. So please take the time to leave a review and rate the podcast, and take a picture of this and tag both me and Danielle on Instagram so we can share it out and say hey to you. All right, ready? Let's go. Hey, Danielle Mercurio. I got to sing your name.
Okay.
Danielle Mercurio. It has to be a jingle. It just has to.
It actually, when the second season of my podcast has a jingle with my name on it.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's been too long.
Just wait. The other morning, I woke up with it in my head. I was like, it's either you're super self-absorbed or it's amazing when you wake up and you have your own jingle in your head.
I think it's both, right? You know.
Yeah. And I'm a Leo, so it's definitely both.
You're not a Leo, baby. You're a triple Leo. Let's give you
credit. I'm a triple Leo. Yes, let's clarify that. Triple Leo. My sun, my moon, and my rising. All Leo.
Amazing. Epic, really. Okay, so let's take people back to when we met. We met online, of course, but we actually got to meet in person at Celebration Live, which was just a year ago, this last summer, right?
Mm-hmm. It was.
And the things that stand out to me, just for everyone listening, if you're new to Danielle, of course, let's have her introduce herself, but I'm going to tell you what I think first about her. She's a triple Leo. So she has, I would say, first of all, confidence. This is what I think of when I think of you, but it's not the type of confidence that is like practiced, and not to say you can't practice it, because I know you help people with that too, but it's innate. It's this feeling from you that you're so on purpose and you're so in yourself. And it's this thing that other people feel comfortable being themselves, I feel like, around you, because you're just like bringing that authentic. You're silly, you're wise, you're bold, you're also just real. And those are the things that I picked up right away, but have also rang true as we've grown closer over the year.
Oh, thank you. I love that so much. And I receive that, and I really appreciate hearing it. It's always so nourishing to have these moments where you can hear from someone that you know and appreciate. Talk about
so
you.
True.
And it's
love
fun.
Language, girl. That is my love language.
Well, I love it. You are my most successful online relationship.
Really? Oh my! I
think about it. I have more online relationships that work in the form of friendships. Dating online relationships.
Yeah.
Not so successful.
Yeah. And you've been doing that a little bit, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll dive into that as well. If you want to share anything else about yourself, this would be an awesome time to do that. What are you up to? What are you passionate about right now? What are you teaching other people?
Yeah. So a big thing that I'm based in Philly for any of my anyone that's listening from Philly or lives in Philly or is perplexed, yeah, I'm in Philly. So love it. I'm actually in the midst of looking for a new place right now, which is always exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. It's like such a rush because it's like, oh, yes, this place could be the one. And am I going to get it? Is it going to work out? And then, oh, no, wait, it's not. And am I going to find a place in time? Right? It's this like crazy thing that happens. But in the space of what I do, how I show up for the world, that is in the space of confidence coaching. Particularly, I've been finding women that are having trouble communicating and articulating to others how they show up. I find that so often we go to family gatherings or parties or networking events and someone, that question always comes up. So what do you do? And so often especially empaths, I find those that are more sensitive, they tend to freeze up and it's kind of like, oh, what do I do? What do I say? How do I make sure that you understand it? How do I not answer so that it sounds like a question while I'm talking? And it's been a really juicy thing for me to dive into with others. I've been curating more workshops in that space, doing more one-on-one coaching around it. And then, of course, some of my other tools that I love to incorporate around business coaching is astrology, which is such an amazing tool for awareness, for understanding your own personal psychology, as well as a way to forecast and become more aware of what's coming up for you. And another passion project of mine is stand-up comedy, which has been really escalating and just so much fun. It's just my opportunity to crack jokes and tell stories and talk about my observations in the world. I've been doing that at different cities, and you can also catch some of it on my own podcast, which is Curiously Confident with Danielle Mercurio.
So good. So you're multi-passionate AF. Yeah, like me and like probably so many listening. And I'm just curious, just to get this out of the way, do you consider yourself to be highly sensitive?
Absolutely.
Yeah. In what ways does it show up for you?
So what I'm in a couple ways, I would say I'm highly sensitive in the space of I feel what other people are feeling. I feel emotions very heavily. I also am very and this is where a lot of my journey has been around. I'm very self-aware, and I'm so sensitive that I'm so highly self-aware. I'm always curious how I fit into the world. So like for me, I'm so highly observant. So my sensitivity almost comes in the form of observance, and I'm so sensitive to everything that I become highly observant. And then from that observation, I'm always trying to figure out, well, what's my fit? How do I play into all of this? So that's a big piece of it. And sometimes I'm too trusting too, to be completely honest.
How does that show up for you?
Well, it shows up in the space of wanting to give people the benefit of the doubt. It shows up in the space of really trusting people so that I don't have to stand up for myself. That's also something I've come to learn in my journey. It's, if you just trust everyone, then you don't have to create boundaries and you don't have to clarify your needs. And I've started to see how that actually can make you feel small and really downplay your gifts and your strengths. So I would say the learning, and it's not to say that now I'm the opposite and I don't trust anyone, but I'm more into just trusting my own intuition, trusting myself first, and then seeing from there how I want to establish trust in another relationship or how I want to play into what someone is offering me and not just always leading with the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, that's fascinating because I find with women in general, one of the biggest things that needs to be strengthened and focused on is trust in general. And so I'm curious for you. Yeah, well, I talk to a lot of women, as do you. And especially when we're thinking about the universal laws and stepping into that universal trust, that the actual trust, I think, for themselves can be the core of why they're not trusting in general the process. Right. And so yes. I'm curious for you, you're saying that you trust really easily. I would say I do too, but I also, I feel like I have my boundaries in place because I trust myself so damn much. right? And so do you feel like, and especially with your work around confidence, do you think some of this plays in? And what do you think is the difference between trusting yourself and the universe and life and the process, and then how that shows up in your relationships with other people? Hey there, sorry to interrupt your podcast listening, but I just wanted to pop in and say I hope you are loving this episode, and that if you would like to learn more about the 5 principles of prosperity, head over to thejayarose.com right after you're done listening and download my 5-day free video series where I break down each principle in a video. It will change your entire life, up-level your mindset, and really, really set you on the path for living to your highest potential.
Yes. So it's a huge process. I believe when it comes to trusting yourself and trusting in that something greater, trusting in that God, universal energy, it takes time. It takes a lot of patience, more so than anything, because it seems like I think the universe is always providing. I think our life is always being looked out for. I think there's always a reason to trust that we're safe and secure here and now. However, it gets put into jeopardy, so to speak, when we really want something. We want something to work out. There's some unknown. There's something that's on the line. There's something that hasn't come to form yet. There's something that is disturbing. And so, we look to higher power, we look to universe, say, take care of this for me. But sometimes it's not an immediate thing that can be taken care of. And also it may require some of your own due diligence or your own showing up. And so I think learning to trust yourself and learning to trust the universe kind of go hand in hand. And it's a practice that takes a lot of trial and error and a lot of patience. And really, when you're really trying to work with that energy of trust, I think it's about learning how to be really clear on what you want and to also leaning back at the same time, which can be really hard to do when you really want something.
That's
really
it right
hard.
There.
I'll bring up the apartment example again. So, I found something the other day that didn't quite meet my list, but it was a good chunk, and it met the top things on my list. So in my head, I was like, well, this is meeting the top things on my list. It's not my whole list, but should that be enough? And I was going back and forth because I was like, well, technically it should be enough because it's meeting the top things on my list. Isn't that great? But then there was another party that was like, no, Danielle, you're settling. So why don't you say no and lean back? So I was like, all right, here's my list. This isn't my list. So I'm going to say no and I'm going to lean back. As soon as I did that, and literally within minutes, another apartment listing came forth that seemed better than the last one. And that's what's been happening every time with this apartment search, even though I so desperately just want to know where I'm going to live, where I'm moving into, what my move-in date's going to be. I want to I want to start the process, right? I want to know, but I don't want to do it at the jeopardy of settling into a place I don't want. And so do I trust myself enough to say, no, this is what I want. I'm really clear on it. And every time I say no, something better is going to come forth, something more aligned. And I'm going to, let it happen, so to speak.
It's like the collaboration between you trusting yourself. And I have found personally that the trust of myself, which has taken, it's messy. Like you said, it takes patience and it takes practice. And I think specifically that practice looks around diving in, even when you're scared, even when you are, it's unknown and uncertain. And in a way, it's training yourself to build the capacity to be able to deal with that. And that's where that trust comes in later, where you're like, look, I've done all this stuff. I've done scary things, right?
Yes.
But if I never took the action and I never failed and didn't get myself uncomfortable in the uncertainty, I wouldn't have the muscle.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a practice just like that, like building a muscle. You're going to be scared, but you become an expander for yourself when you are uncomfortable and you go for it anyway, because you're going to be put into an uncomfortable position again at some point, but at least you can look back and say, remember that time I was really scared, I was really uncomfortable, but I did it anyway and it all worked out. Oh yeah, I remember that time. Yeah. Okay. Same thing can happen here too.
So it's the evidence, right? Right. Like creating that evidence. Me too. I mean, that's why Oh, I was just talking to Jonathan about something and we were looking, oh, I might have been watching Bachelor in Paradise.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah, I know. You're my only friend who
Ugh.
watches that. And I even put it on my Instagram stories with a
Uh-huh.
little poll, like,
Uh-huh.
hey, who watches it? And everybody was like, oh, hell no. And I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed.
Oh, don't be embarrassed.
No,
Don't be
I'm
embarrassed.
obsessed. It's
Yeah.
such an amazing people study. And so
Oh,
I
it
was
is.
talking to my husband and I'm like, these people are so insecure and
Mm-hmm.
they just, it's amazing to me. I want to go on there and be a life coach. Like we should tag team that. It would be amazing.
That'd be amazing.
And
Yes.
and he said, well, honey, I think it's the difference between being 25 and 40. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I still
Yeah.
feel like I'm like young and hot, but yeah, I'm wise.
That's a good point, though, because you're right. I mean, I'm 35, and sometimes I watch, I'm just like, oh my gosh, why are they acting this way? And it's like, because that was you 10 years ago. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, right.
It is easy to forget. That's amazing.
Yes.
So I'm just finding I don't know, I'm finding a parallel between what we're talking about trusting and evidence. And I mean, really, these are universal laws that we're talking about. And then also the way we bring it down into human form, which I think that you and I have a parallel in this, the way we show up, and tell me what you think of this. I feel like we both have this ability to connect, right? To tap in, to feel aligned with our soul and really do that deep spiritual work, but then translate that into a grounded physical lesson and plan, if you will, right? I know you're really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, you're like, yes, yes. So far, yes. Okay, so what I want to know from you about this is you've gone into confidence, really, and I know the last time we talked, I was just like, yes, and it's so good for you. I mean, so aligned from the outside, and I feeling from the inside as well. How does your spiritual practice and how do these universal laws come into play when you're working with someone around confidence?
Yeah. So when I'm working with someone around confidence, particularly someone that is open to spiritual concepts, how does that play into a session?
Yeah. And like, how does it play into the results they get and the way that then they begin to move in the world? Because I feel like so much of what you're saying is like that trust, but that's confidence.
Yes. Yes. So trust is confidence. They go hand in hand. Here's the thing. Before you can get into confidence and before the confidence can lead into trust, it's about ownership. And really, and we talked about this before, becoming the authority figure of your life. But that doesn't happen overnight either. We have been so ingrained with other people telling us who we should be, how we should show up in the world, what's expected of us. Even when we do decide what it is that we want to do, we're still not quite sure if we're doing it right. And there's so much focus on the outside world. We never really give ourselves a chance and we never really hone in on our strengths and really take full ownership of this is who I am, take it or leave it. Because that feels really scary. Once again, we bring up that fear, we bring up that discomfort. Am I allowed to say, take it or leave it, this is who I am? Is it going to be okay if I say this is who I am and people leave? Right? There's a lot of things that are on the line with us being ourselves, especially when we've been in hiding. And that was a lot of my journey initially. I was in hiding of who I was, very much so. And when I came out of hiding, so to speak, when I started to do the work, when I started to understand how I wanted to show up in the world, a lot of my dynamics in the world shifted and changed and altered, which some in really beautiful ways, some in really hard ways. However, the more that I opened up into the process of me and who I was and what lit me up and what excited me, I started to be able to take ownership of that. And from that ownership, you can't help but be confident. And from that confidence, you can't help but embed trust. So I really think the first step, though, in taking ownership is learning how to be okay with yourself as you are. A lot of people talk about self-love. I don't think that's possible right away. I think self-love is, again, something that is a far out concept for someone that's new on their journey. I believe in self-okayness. Can you be okay with yourself as you are? Can you be okay with just looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I'm a little confused right now? Or, you know what, I think I need to work on some things. I'm not really sure where it's going to lead, and that's okay. And just starting to be in the process of experimenting, getting to know yourself. And the more that you do that, then you kind of fall into this self-likeness, and you start to be like, okay, I think now I like myself. I like where this is going. I like the changes that are happening. And then once we start to practice, the self-likeness, then we can start to explore self-love. So that's what I always recommend first, is just how can you learn to just accept yourself as you are, for who you are in this present moment. You don't have to be super confident. You don't have to be super in love with yourself. You just have to say, I'm okay, and I'm willing to give myself a chance. And that's where I think things can really start to grow.
So good. The okay, I think, is such an underused concept, especially in the self-help world, because you're right. It does go, and I talk a lot about self-love, but I feel like I'm talking to the right audience when I do that. You're right. It's like you got to consider where somebody is and what the appropriate steps are for them to take, because then they may just feel defeated, right? Because they're like, that concept, nope, I'm not good enough. It's just more evidence.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And that was my journey when I first started to get help. I remember people were like throwing books at me about positivity and just love yourself. And I just was like, I don't like myself at all. Like, this is really hard. And that's actually when I found meditation. And that through meditation is where I started to learn this understanding of just meet yourself where you're at today. Just get through today. That's enough. You don't have to get through today and then some. Just get through today. And that was what really helped me in the beginning.
And when was that?
That was about 9 years ago.
Yeah. And is that the initiation to your personal development journey?
It sure is. So
it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And what, if you don't mind me asking, what I can see your smirk. I can't see it, but I can feel it. So what was the catalyst for that? What was that rock bottom, if it was, or that hard time for you?
Yeah, it was a lot of reoccurring hot messes rolled into one, essentially. But it really started, to be completely honest, I believe what led me to my rock bottom was the people pleaser in me and the person that thought I had to live up to society's expectations. So it pretty much started to fall apart when I entered college and feeling like I didn't fit in with having a major that I identified with. I went for elementary special ed, and I just thought that was what I was supposed to do. And so I was going through the motions in college, and then, I graduated college, and I didn't teach because it didn't feel good to me. So then I felt like I was defying society because I'm not doing what my major was, and I was waiting tables, and that felt quote unquote wrong, even though I will say, like, serving and bartending is probably one of the best jobs you can have if you want to really understand people. But regardless, I just felt like I was constantly doing everything wrong. Everything that I felt like I was expected to do felt tiring and draining. And instead of being like, oh, the reason why you don't like what society is telling you to do is because that's not what you're supposed to do. What I did was I beat myself up, and I judged myself constantly. And I constantly belittled myself for not feeling like everyone else. And it was getting really bad until I started to realize that there were things outside of me that I could use to help me escape. Like alcohol, like drugs, like sex, like shopping. It didn't matter. I just started to kind of, I was addicted to escapism. That's the best way I can describe food, right? It really, like, there was no like particular thing of choice. It was just what's going to give me a high, what's going to allow me to escape from my current reality, because I don't like myself. I don't like the fact that I don't fit in. And I need to get away from this, even if it's just for a few hours or just for a night. And I was doing that for, quite a while, a few years, and it just was starting to catch up on me. You can only maintain that escapism, so to speak, for so long. And I really do believe God was looking out for me in a way, because every morning I'd wake up and every morning I'd wake up and I would just be like, God, like, just make sure I make it through today. And I would. Every morning I'd wake up again, I'd be like, all right, we got through yesterday. And that was like my mantra. And then I was at a wedding. This is the 9 years ago. I was at a wedding, and I was a maid of honor, and I wound up getting really wasted. And I had a really unfortunate issue incident with one of the groomsmen, where boundaries were crossed that shouldn't have been. And the next morning I just was feeling worse than I've ever felt. And I just didn't know I was like, where is my life going? Like, what am I supposed to make of all this? Like, I can't keep living this way anymore. I can't keep abusing my body and my mind. I have to believe there's something better. And so it was from that place that I sought out help and therapy and things of that nature. And I had done therapy before, but this was the first time I actually wanted to. I wanted to put in the work. I wanted to explore this. And it was really hard. It was probably one of the most challenging times of my life, actually, to sit with everything. But that was the catalyst. And then, that led into exploring things like meditation and personal growth. And then, of course, realizing, oh, I'm meant to be in this space too.
Yeah. And at what point, and first of all, thank you. Oh my God. I mean, I feel like those stories, and I know it's not supercharged, because the way you told it, it shows that it's not supercharged for you anymore, but it also is, it's so much value, because it's ridiculously easy to look at someone like you who has a successful business, who follows her passions, who is well respected and confident AF. Like, this is how you've always been. Like, you for sure came out of the womb like this. Definitely. Yeah, no. Just telling jokes. You just came out, you just cracked a joke. You're like, what up? What up, Mom?
Nope.
So, I mean, there's just so much value in that. And I'm curious for you, because you are a teacher. I know you do coaching, and I also know that at the core, you're a teacher.
Yes.
And in that, I also am guessing that there was a time where it switched for you, where it went from the focus on yourself, and the changes you're making on yourself, which I know is really challenging, went through the same thing. And you're saying that was like such a hard time. But then when did it transition into, oh, this is something that I could help other people with now?
Yeah, not that long after, to be completely honest with you. I would say within, it might even be a year to a year and a half after really starting the journey of personal growth, I started to feel better. I started to feel more confident. I started to, again, kind of move into the space of liking myself, even loving myself, feeling confident. And that felt awesome. But what didn't feel awesome was I was still I was working at the time as an assistant at a law firm. And while it was a quote unquote good job, I was like, you know what? I don't really love this job, and it has a shelf life. What else is out there for me? And that's when I started to explore the idea of, okay, now that I feel good, now that I feel confident, what could there be? And this was something I explored with my therapist. And, I just kept going back to this notion of what it really was like, more people need to know that there's another way, because I didn't believe that there was another way outside of what we were supposed to do. I didn't believe that I could really change who I was. I didn't believe that, some of I just thought self-judgment was just something I would always have to live with. And it sounds so funny speaking about it now, but at the time I remember learning things. I was shocked. I was shocked to learn some of the things that I learned when I was learning about myself, when I was learning about personal development, and I was learning about how the mind worked. And it was just like, oh my God, like, how come nobody told me these things? And that's what I kept coming back to when I was trying to explore what I wanted to do next. I was just like, I got to let people know there's another way. And that's when I started to explore the idea of going back to grad school for therapy. But I found a program that does life coaching. I went to IPEC, which is the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. They have centers all over the country. It's an amazing program. It's like a 9 or 6 month program where you meet in person. It's amazing. So I found that and enrolled, and the rest is history. I guess, if that's what you want to say, or her story.
Yeah, it's her story.
Her story.
And it's always unfolding, right? I know one of the things.
Always.
So for everybody listening, Danielle and I are in a very small peer-led mastermind called the Soul Sister Alliance. And it's so good, right?
Yes.
And in there, we get real about like what's really coming up for us, because a lot of times for someone who chooses leadership and chooses to be in a position of teaching and guiding, it can get a little bit lonely in some ways, or just rather isolating. And like, who do I talk to? Because you don't show up for your clients and talk about your own stuff. No. You don't.
No.
And good, good, because I don't want my coach to do that for me. And at the same time, we need that. We're human. Just because we're in a leadership position does not mean we aren't shifting, growing, and changing all the freaking time. Right? So in that, I know that we've been talking a lot about shifts and changes. And so I know this last year, like let's fast forward from when you first started and safely assume that you have shifted along the way and grown, right?
Absolutely.
Obviously. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. And then I also know that this last year, and so we are recording this right now, September of 2018. And what I mean by this last year is kind of like the last year and a half, 17, 18. Yes. And I know that a lot of people feel this way. So I would love to just touch on what it's been like for you, but then also how do you zoom out? Because I work a lot in myself and with my clients around, okay, yes, zoom in, like zoom all the way in. Let's deal with you. But then let's zoom out. Like, what is the higher purpose? What is the cosmic energy, which is so your line of expertise, right?
Right.
So I'm curious for you, what's been happening with all the shifting and pivoting and realigning you've been doing, and then how you feel like that plays into the larger cosmic energy.
Okay. Yes. So, part of my journey in becoming a coach and evolving my spiritual practice and also my business, it's taken a lot of turns in really beautiful ways. When I first started out, I was just focusing specifically on coaching women that were dealing with the issues I was dealing with, a couple years prior. And as I stepped more into my spiritual practice, life took me, my job actually transferred me to New York City. And being in New York City, I was exposed to more things like Kundalini yoga and Gabby Bernstein. And I started to fall more into the spiritual community. And within that, specifically entrepreneurs in that space, other life coaches, other healers. I started to unlock my gifts with astrology, and I became trained in Kundalini yoga. And I really was like on a fast spiritual track, if you will, and really escalating in that way. And I found that for me, it started to get a little bit out of hand. And I found that what was happening, just like the woman 9 years ago that was worried about what everybody thought, I found myself doing that again in my business. This was maybe like 2.5 years ago, that it, maybe even less, I'd say 2 years ago, where it started to hit me, where I was like, wait, am I doing this right? Is this what people want? And it wasn't being shown that way, but inside, that's what I was feeling. I was like, wait, am I doing this right? Is this what people need? And I found that a lot of the spiritual trends and things were being blown up and over materialized, and other people were coming out with these like kind of like get rich quick schemes. And I just was like, what is going on? What's my place in all of this? And I was getting really caught up in the frenzy of it all. And it was very confusing in a lot of ways. And I felt like I was losing sight a little bit of who I was in all of this. And what brought me back, and really what I've been working on this past year, is who was I when I first started? And who I was when I first started was a girl that wanted to help women with their confidence and wanted to be a speaker. And it's like so simple. And for some reason, I wanted to make it more complicated, and I wanted to add more things. And I'm glad that I did. But now I'm like, I just want to go back to basics. And it feels really good to do that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the part of the personal journey, I would say. And then from the larger collective, I mean, cosmically, there have been a ton of shifts that have been happening to really help us see that, like, it's you, it's your gifts, it's your responsibility, it's you taking ownership for your life in whatever capacity that may be. It might be as an entrepreneur, it might be as an accountant, it might be as a mom. It doesn't really matter, but I feel like collectively what the emphasis has been on is, who are you? How are you fully expressing that out into the world? And if you're not, what's getting in your way? What are you allowing to hold you back? Because I think right now, part of why this was so heavy, I think a lot of people, myself included, were aware of their blocks, were aware of what was holding them back, whether it be personal, someone else in their life, a job, whatever it may be, but not willing to really show up and be like, no, I'm going to say no to this, even if it seems like it's good on paper, even if it's going to hurt someone, even if it's going to be scary, even if I might be isolated from it. I got to move forward anyway. And that's what I feel like has been the hardest part of this collective cosmic journey we've been on. However, I believe it's for our highest good so that we can be more authentic and happy and fully expressed in the world.
Fully expressed. That really resonates with me.
Yeah, that's been coming through.
I think having that, it's such a gift to have the ability and the knowledge. I mean, you have a lot of knowledge around astrology, but it's also an ability that you have to zoom out. And I think that it's just really important because so many passionate women who are focused on their growth, which is, I believe, who we both help, it's easy to get lost and sort of like, almost like you're treading water, or it's just stuck in this very in depth in you place where when we zoom out and we're like, you know what, everybody's going through this. This is about something bigger than you. I mean, this is my driving force, is that I have the ability to do that. And it's the only reason I get out of my own way, literally. Yeah. Otherwise, I would sit in resistance. I would tell myself I wasn't good enough still. And I've been practicing that shit for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? But I call it a purpose mindset. And it's around, what is the purpose of this that has nothing to do with you and whether you think you should be doing X, Y, and Z. It really is about this higher calling. And when you tap into that flow, you are unstoppable. And even if it doesn't turn out how you thought, it doesn't matter because it's of this greater purpose than just yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so good. So I just love that resonance. I don't think I ever pinpointed that between us before, just that capacity is so needed in these times that we're in right now, these modern day times.
For sure. Yes.
Okay. So I have a couple more things for you. One, okay, I would love to highlight your talent and one of your passions, which is 100% got to be the comedy. Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, do you have a little bit that you could share with us?
It so doesn't work that way.
It doesn't? Okay. No.
But we can do a little something, but it is funny because literally, funny. When I tell people I do that, the first thing is always like, well, tell me a joke.
Yeah.
And it's like I could, but yeah.
Well, so you don't write bits. You don't write it out.
Write bits, but I think what it is, for me, why the comedy works. I mean, I'm funny in person. Like if you're having a conversation with me, depending. Sometimes I'm not. Some people were shocked when they found out that I did comedy. Just because depending on how you know me in what way, I may just come across as very grounded and very serious. But however, if the more that you get to know me, the more I feel comfortable, the more I let the jokes out and I'm funny and I'm a little bit sarcastic, all the things. But I find that where the magic shines for the comedy really is when I'm on stage and I'm feeding off the collective energy and I'm telling a story or I'm, just presenting a joke in that way. So that's when it works best. But we can do a little play right now.
Okay.
All right. So you just want a joke, huh?
I mean, I want you to shine, baby, however that is for you.
Okay. All right. So here's something that's really interesting. As we've been talking about, I've been on a, personal journey for a while right now. And, a lot of things happen that really like weigh me down and kind of get in my way. Dating life is really rough and there's all that stuff, right? And some crazy things can happen. However, my saving grace is that I love myself. And what's really cool is when you're on a personal journey and you're working on yourself and you're reading these books, you automatically become an expert on life. And like, you really only need to read like a couple books because like once you do, you like automatically know things. And then you get to go to the Facebook and you get to post things and be like, look what I know. Cause like, I'm an expert on life now. And then you can go to the Instagram and like, what's really cool about Instagram is that people follow you and like you can create your own quotes. And like what's really great about the quotes is that they get likes and like what's really amazing about that is like these likes, they basically represent how much I love myself. So like, that's amazing, right? And we have all these cool brands now, like Spiritual Gangster. Do you wear any Spiritual Gangster apparel?
I on purpose do not, but I do. I kind of crush on it though.
Yeah. So Spiritual Gangster, I think that's really interesting because I was like thinking about it. I'm like, well, what's a spiritual gangster? Because the meaning of a gangster is a member of organized crime, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, why are we putting a spiritual lens on this? So I had this image of a spiritual gangster being this person with a green juice trying to bully you into having a miracle. And they're like chasing after you with their angel card deck, being like, if you don't let me pull this card for you, like right now, like you better watch out. We'll do Reiki when you're sleeping and you won't even know it, right? Like that's how like badass they are. So.
Oh God. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit.
Okay. So for everybody who's listening, how freaking amazing is Danielle Mercurio? I mean, so good. Woo woo. She obviously has got it going on. So tell us like where are you hanging out online? Where should we follow you? And if you have anything free that you want to offer us, please do. I just put you on the spot, but whatever you want to tell us about, go for it.
Instagram, obviously.
Mm-hmm. IG stories.
Check out my stories. Yes. They're amazing. Today did you see my milk mustache?
No, I didn't see your stories today.
All right. Well, I have a milk mustache today.
Good.
Because why not?
Yeah.
And so what's more spiritual than a milk mustache?
Nothing.
Oh, and it's organic, by the way. And it's actually it's not even milk. It's, a milk alternative. So, Avi. So Instagram, you can find me at Danielle Mercurio. My website, daniellemercurio.com. As far as if I have anything free to give you, I mean, geez, makes me sound so available. But if you go to my website, I actually have a really amazing Kundalini yoga set that you can opt into.
It's like, want that.
Yeah, it's 45 minutes and it helps you tap into your intuition, which goes back to what we were originally talking about, this notion of how to trust yourself. It's a set to help you tap into that. So
I want that. Okay, yes. Cool. We just go to daniellemercurio.com.
Yes. And then you can either find the opt-in at the bottom or you can go to the section that's called Kundalini Yoga.
I love it. Okay, cool. I'll link that up for everybody. Everybody, I'm sure, will want that. I have had the pleasure of taking a Kundalini Yoga class live from Danielle, and it was amazing. I had a total euphoric moment, and it's perfect because this show is called Bliss Boss Talks, and it's about being the boss of your bliss. And that is such an incredible way to tune into that boss in your bliss, right?
Sure is.
I love it so much. So do you have any final words?
Final words, I guess. What I would want to leave people with, no matter where you are in your journey, whether you feel like you're super evolved and you're really doing what you love, or you're in the space of like, oh my gosh, it feels like my life is falling apart and I'm stressed every day. What I really want to leave you with is just this remembrance that this gets to be your journey. This gets to be your life, and you get to be unapologetic about that. So no matter where you are in your journey, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're thinking, no matter what your limitation is, you have permission to follow your bliss, just like Jaya is saying. You have permission to fully to seek what that full expression of what your life may be. You are allowed to be led by your passions. You are allowed to live life on purpose. So just remember, it's okay to be unapologetic. And that's something that I had a really hard time with, to not feel like I have to apologize for my life, but like, you don't have to say sorry. You don't have to be so, apologetic. Like you can be unapologetic. You can seek what is seeking you, as they say, the great wise ones, but just freaking go for it. This is your permission slip from the universe that you may go explore your life now and have fun.
Ready? Let's go. So good. Thank you so much. Beyond my heart. I'm doing a big heart hug with you. I love you so much. You're amazing.
I love you. You're amazing.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next time on Bliss Boss Talks. Thank you so much for being here and enjoying another episode of Bliss Boss Talks. I am over the moon that you take the time to listen, and I would be honored if you would take the time to rate and subscribe to this podcast and also write a review. It means the world to me. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you're getting value out of this. Please just take those couple minutes. It would mean everything to me. And if you had a transformation, if you had an aha moment during this episode, please take the time to just share it out. You know what? I love it if you tag me on Instagram, Bliss Boss Living, and I will feature you in my stories. So super exciting. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time on Bliss Boss Talks.